another doctor, Dr. Amy Silver. How are you?
I'm great, Steve. How are you? Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me.
No, it's our pleasure. What did you think of Use the Fear? Was that a good show opener or not?
I love it. Love it. We have to use the fear. We have to get better at understanding our fear and really using it as a tool, but also learning how to control it.
Now, you're listed as a psychologist, an author, and a speaker. So you've obviously got a fair handle on fear and our relationship with fear and ways to change the fear. What's your background? Where has all this come from?
Well, I actually started in clinical psychology. So my background is in therapy and research. And I was always interested in fear because it's the thing that seems to stand between where we are and where we want to be. And so if we can understand how fear works and learn some really simple tools and techniques that are very well known in the psychology world, but less used in everyday life, I think we could really achieve amazing things, both individually and as a collective.
Yeah, and we're surrounded. I mean, this is COVID, this is recession, this is the US elections. It's everything all at the
Yeah.
same time. There's plenty to be fearful of, and just in Victoria, and this is a national show, but in Victoria, I think it's 5 or 6 days in a row now. We've had zero COVID cases, so we're starting to lose that fear. But I noticed the press pretty much on the weekend were going, well, let's not forget about climate change. It's far worse than coronavirus ever was, and it seems to me they want to keep us in this state of fear that we didn't even get a couple of days rest. How do you handle the doom scrolling or all the media that tends to push fear? Except for Ticker TV, we're a very positive network. What are your thoughts on being surrounded by fear?
Look, I think it's makes sense. It's a really human need for us to feel alive, and I think fear is pretty close to us having a real insight into what aliveness is. The problem comes when it becomes paralyzing. So, fear and excitement are quite difficult to tell apart in physically and emotionally, but when we add a layer of catastrophe to it, or we add a layer of hopelessness to it, it starts to get a little bit out of control and can be quite paralyzing. So it's not fear itself that is bad. It's what we choose to do with that fear that really can keep us in a place that we don't want to be.
Yeah, and actually, look, we're rolling a bit of a scene of being in a city that's got a lot of people, and there's something I wanted to raise with you today and help us overcome at the moment in Melbourne, in other parts of the world as well that have had lockdowns and that go on for an extended period of time. People get to a point, and I heard this saying last week. We all know what FOMO is, fear of missing out. Someone threw at me on social media, I've got FOGO. And I'm going, well, what's FOGO? But it's fear of going out. And you sit there going, all right, well, we've been locked down for so long. And there's a lot of extroverts amongst us, or fearless people, or whatever it might be, who have just thrown themselves into, getting out to cafes and catching up with families and friends. But there is a core of people who have got this fear of going out. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I love that expression, Steve, and thanks so much for bringing it to everybody's attention because I think there's something really crucial happening. We have been in a period of fear, and we have also been in a habit forming stage. It's been going on for long enough that it's actually become a habit now. So the fear of going out is just the fear of newness, and added to that is the fears that we all have of catching the virus, our increased fears of vulnerability to other health concerns. There's also financial fears. There's all sorts of fears that are adding to what our expectations are about ourselves and what we should be doing. And so it's kind of interesting because we don't know the stats yet in terms of the long-term chronic implications of corona, but we do know that in the acute stage, that there are probably about 80% more of us who are experiencing what would have previously been called anxiety. And so it's difficult to tell what's normal right now because we are all experiencing a certain level of it. But when it starts to prevent us from re-engaging, and we have a fear of going out that prevents us from moving through the stages of beating a habit, that's when we start to have that fear of going out. It starts to be quite we start to feel ashamed of it, or we don't know what to do with it, or we don't know how to help people, and we have a layer of expectations about what we should be doing.
That word you've just used there, I think it's a wonderful word, re-engaging, because that's what it is. We have locked ourselves away and done the right thing to a degree, but there is a step where we've got to go, hang on, this is not good for long-term mental health. We need social interaction. We are relational people. Some people are more relational than others, but at every level, people need other people and need that social contact. They need to smile at each other. They need to be out there. We have to re-engage. Now, for some, as I said earlier, that is really, really easy just to get out there and get amongst it. That's my strategy usually, is just to throw myself into it and figure it out. But for others that are struggling, what are some of the things they can start to do to re-engage in life?
Look, I think the very first thing is to remember that we're all different, and so we will be having different experiences. There is no normal here because we've not done this before. So while, as you say, some people will be ready to go out straight away, others won't, and that's okay. So the first piece is just to, whatever you're experiencing, it's okay. However, as you said, Steve, we do need to have an approach of re-engaging, which probably looks closest to something called graded exposure, which is a behavioral psychology technique where we take little baby steps towards the thing that we're going for. So the problem with anxiety and fear is when we start to listen to it so closely, we start to avoid things, because that's what fear wants us to do.
Yeah.
So we have to build
Avoidance
the muscle.
is a good trigger, isn't it? It really is a good trigger. If you're avoiding, you've got a problem and that's got to be addressed. So when you say that, it's effectively baby steps, isn't it? So if you've got a cafe that you used to go to and you used to love going to, but you've got a bit of FOGO of it, you've been going there to get your takeaway coffee. Well, instead of throwing yourself in and going down and having a meal with friends at that cafe, why not sit down and have your coffee there? Just do a little step. You sit down, have your coffee there, and the next time you go, you might have your coffee and toast. And that's a great way to start to get over that fear and get moving again. All right, what's our next step? We've got that one.
Yeah, just hearing when you're out doing that graded steps is tuning into the excitement rather than the negativity that kind of comes with fear, which is all about sort of this is going to end badly. So rather than tuning into that version of those physical feelings, tuning into this is fun, this is exciting, I haven't done this for a while, and a more sort of playful attitude. So just watching the way that you're thinking to make sure that you're not interpreting those physical feelings in a negative way, but looking at them more positively as playful.
I really love that. So you've got your first step, take a baby step, and instead of sitting there being negative, tune into the positive that's going on around you. What happens if you're faced with a group of friends or a person, someone who's trying to accelerate your, social life again, and you're not quite ready for it? They might even be a bit bully about it. They might go, come on, get over it. There's no COVID. Just come to the pub or come and do whatever. How do you handle those sort of circumstances?
Yeah, I think it's really such an important point that our mindset will not change at the same speed as any laws or regulations or any changes that Victoria, for example, are experiencing. And so it would be naive to think that our brains can just switch from going, it's not okay, to it's okay. So being able to just stand in the normality of that, as you said, really keeping on mind the fact that you are on a graded program and you are heading towards something. You're definitely not into avoiding things. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in this situation, but being mindful that it's not necessarily for everybody a really snap kind of twist, and that we will be having a different journey, and that idea of being responsible for self and not being driven by other people's expectations. If you've got a plan to move forward with going out and reintegrating, stick to your plan. And if you can move through it faster, excellent. And if you can't, then just, have some sort of faith that this is the process that you need to go through.
And for all of us to be a bit more respectful of people that are on plans, to respect what they're doing. And look, that there is a line, we should be gently encouraging people, but there is a line that you cross when you move away from gentle encouragement into actually being a bully. And, certainly don't be bullying people to progress their their plan at a pace that's more suited to you and not them. It's all about them. Now, Dr. Amy, I always ask this question, or nearly always ask this question on Fearless. What are you afraid of? What are you scared of?
Well, I'm actually frightened of losing the gains that I've made during COVID. So, and not just me, but us as a group. So I feel like we've had this opportunity to learn more about ourselves, learn more about the way that our emotions work and what we need. We've got kind of closer to that vulnerability of self and therefore making choices about what we want in our life and what we don't want. And I'm fearful that we're going to lose that quite quickly. And so I'm really trying my hardest to keep hold of the gains and remind myself of what it is that's important to me, rather than getting back into the everyday that other people choose what my day is like.
I think that's really valuable. And just on Monday myself, I pulled out my journal, which I always have with me, and started to write the lines down that, do not waste a crisis. We've had a crisis. Fortunately, they don't happen too often, although they seem to happen every decade. It's fairly regular. We have had a major crisis that has changed a lot of our thinking and a lot of our actions, and not to go back to the way of life, that way of life you were trying to stop, or that way of life that you were trying to move away from. Hey, for the past so many months, we have moved away from it. The worst thing you can do is go back and actually recommence that. To really know in your heart, mind, and your journal what your life looks like coming out of a crisis is probably more important than actually being inside it. So how's your life changed, Dr. Amy?
Well, my life's changed because people have become more open and interested in understanding fear and their emotions. And I think that's a wonderful thing, because we really have the answers of what to do with fear. We know them from science and from heaps of research and therapy. We know what we can do to help. So this has opened people up to a whole new range of tools and techniques that can help them manage their fear. So that's been amazing for me to see.
Excellent. Now, with a name like Dr. Amy Silver, I guess you're fairly easy to find on social media and the internet. What's the best way people can continue this conversation with you?
Just type in dramysilver.com and you will find me. And obviously you can join. I have a Courage Club, which is about helping people manage their fears.
I really like that, Courage Club. Give us a 30-second talk on that one.
Oh, it's an 8-week program, and then it's a tribe of people who are all in it to beat their own fears, and it's different for different people. Some people have got social fears, and some people have got physical fears, or relational fears, or vulnerability fears. So it's just a place to play safely and help us all work forward on all of our fears. We've all got fears, and so we can all become more and more masterful over ourselves and get closer to the person that we want to be.
Exceptional. I love your work, Doctor. The Courage Club. So if you're out there struggling and you're looking for a club to be a part of, look up Dr. Amy. Thank you for being on Fearless. Now,
thank you, Steve.